my shoulders. I got a bad shoulder.
How about we all turn around? Let's all turn around.
Well, there's no need for one person to walk back. We don't want to look strange.
No.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah, we don't want to look weird.
I unfortunately broke my shoulder.
Yeah.
We wouldn't know what to do with ourselves.
Slowly, here we go.
Hey, Emmy, get off the step.
Which way does it go?
Get off the step.
Emmy,
All the
Emmy.
way. Can't be allowed on the step.
Oh, you're not allowed on the step?
All right.
Oh, sorry.
I don't know if they're gonna actually open up the shipping spot.
I mean, actually,
Let him get some
Well, I'll only need to open the top part of it for me to lower the list of names into it. No, I think we'll leave it closed until we're ready to. We're going to go get ahead and start getting started here in a second. We're just going to have to deal with the fact that people are going around us. It's all the way up. It's all the way up. This is the loudest. So, anyways, I think you guys already know why we're here. But since this is a funeral of sorts, and we're going to be honoring the people who have died because of the registry, we're going to open up with a prayer. So, I'll allow you to come in and introduce yourself.
Good morning. Pastor Jeremy with Crossroads of Hope, a church that is meant to be able to minister to those on the registry and their families. Those that feel that they're unwelcome in traditional church environments, those who are just hurting, so that we don't see endings like this. If you want to join in, please bow your head. Heavenly Father, we just thank you, Lord, for this opportunity to come and be able to honor those who have lost their lives or taken their lives, either during periods of detention where they felt that there was no hope, where they may have been victimized because of their status, targeted directly for that reason, for those that came home and felt that the registry was overwhelming, that they could not live their lives in such a condition, for those that may have been living their lives and having some success, but because of their status being publicly delivered to the communities around them, some felt that they needed to take vigilante justice into their own hands. And Father, the other countless ways that people have been targeted just because of a public registry. Father, we pray for peace in these families' lives. We pray for solutions, path to healing and rehabilitative services. Courage in the individuals that have to deal with the registry. Courage in the families to stand up and speak boldly against this issue. Father, we recognize the dangers to our societies, and we're wise enough to be able to find productive solutions that do not jeopardize the lives of those around us. Give us that courage, that boldness, the strength to unite and move as one body in this mission. We ask all these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
I suppose I should introduce myself first. For those who don't know, my name is Derek Logue, and I run oneswalling.com, the informational site for people convicted of sex offenses. And we are gathered here today Because 20 years ago, in this very building behind us, 6 United States Supreme Court justices published Smith versus Doe, a terrible decision that has destroyed hundreds of thousands of lives, all based on lies and misinformation. Writing for the majority, Justice Anthony Kennedy upheld the draconian practice of forcing those convicted of sexual offenses to provide private information on a publicly accessible registry. Justice Kennedy relied heavily on the false premise that recidivism among those convicted of sexual offenses was, quote, frightening and high. Justice Kennedy also relied on the arguments of John Roberts, who at the time was working on behalf of the state of Alaska, who argued that the act of sex offense registration was no more intrusive than applying for a Price Club membership. Smith versus Doe is a terrible decision that has caused immeasurable harm to every person forced to register over the past 2 decades. Constitutional protections, often taken for granted by the average American citizen, were stripped from persons forced to register, and we are treated like second-class citizens. Smith versus Doe opened a Pandora's box of increasingly draconian laws, from residency restriction laws to restrictions on employment to lifetime GPS, and virtually every law directed at persons forced to register used the Smith versus Doe decision as the basis for these increasingly oppressive laws. 6 U.S. Supreme Court justices condemned us to death. Former Chief Justice William Rehnquist, Sandra Day O'Connor, Antonin Scalia, Anthony Kennedy, David Souter, and Clarence Thomas. If you include current Chief Justice John Price Club Roberts, 7 SCOTUS justices in total have stained their hands with our blood and the blood of those who died for the sake of this Price Club. Washington, D.C. is a place for memorials of all kinds. This casket, built by a registered person, is our own makeshift memorial to remember the countless lives lost to one of the worst Supreme Court decisions in human history. To date, I am aware of hundreds of deaths that can be tied, whether directly or indirectly, to the public registry. And this may be only scratching the surface, since we rely heavily upon news reports, and crimes against persons forced to register are highly underreported. Much like the tomb of the unknown soldier, we have our own tomb for the untold numbers who have died because of this terrible decision rendered by 6 justices in the building standing behind my back 20 years ago. Despite not knowing the names of every person who died because of the registry, I cannot possibly cover every single person and every single story here. Throughout the rest of my eulogy, I will share the names of some people who have died in various ways as the result of the public sex offense registry. Not everyone who was killed was a registered person. Some were loved ones, like a family member or a friend, like many of you. A few were falsely accused of a crime. A few were simply mistaken for a person forced to register. But in all of these cases, the registry, upheld by the 6 SCOTUS justices in 2003, are directly responsible for these deaths. I shall begin by reading the names of those murders who have been proven beyond a reasonable doubt to be tied directly to the registry, whether by the online registry, community notification, or by notices given out by law enforcement. This does not include the unsolved murders where motivation cannot be definitively proven, or where the media downplayed the role of the registry, which may have taken a role in other murders. John Mayo, Salt Lake City, died May 9, 2005. Hank Ices and Victor Vasquez died in Bellingham, Washington on July 13, 2005. Joseph Gray of Milo, Maine, and William Elliott of Corinth died on April 16, 2006. Both were murdered by the same vigilante. Lee Alexander, Brandon, Florida, May 14, 2007. Michael A. Dodell, Lakeport, California, November 20, 2007. David Cootie and Chad Wiggins. They were both non-registered persons who were murdered because they rented a home to a registered person. Eccles County, Georgia, died May 28, 2008. Neil Hayes, Sacramento, died January 1st, 2009, murdered by white supremacists. Silas Miller, Moss Point, Mississippi, died June 2nd, 2009. Edward Von Keeley, North Palm Springs, California, died August 10, 2009, murdered by a white supremacist. David Morrison, Los Angeles, Nevada. December 17, 2010, Bobby Rainwater, San Juan Capistrano, California. December 2nd, 2011, Gary Blanton, Port Angeles, Washington, and Jerry Ray, Sequim, Washington, died on June 2nd, 2012, both murdered by the same vigilante. James Grant, Elkhart, Indiana, died August 5th, 2012. Lawrence J. Lewis, Molunkus Township, Maine, died March 12, 2013. Charles Parker, along with his wife, Gretchen Parker, who was not on the registry, murdered in Jonesville, South Carolina. July 22nd, 2013, their murders were neo-Nazis who wrote a manifesto calling for the murders of registered persons and their entire families. Lawrence Ballesteros, Fresno, California, died April 3rd, 2014. John Tarvin, Doniphan, Missouri, died April 26, 2016. Jerry Caudill, Logan County, Kentucky, died June 7, 2017. Alfred Wildheim and Rhonda Ballo, a Dawn registrant dating Alfred, was killed in Las Vegas, Nevada on December 26, 2017. Jerry Wayne Scott died July 17 in Zwolle, Louisiana, and Adam Jeter in the same town a few months later, both killed by the same vigilante. Matteo Condalucci, Omaha, Nebraska, died May 16, 2020, and James Christopher McClernand, Evansville, Indiana, died July 27, 2022. These are the names of other persons forced to register who were murdered, and in these cases, the registrant status was used to justify the murder. October 10, 2003, Matthew May Rayner and Charles Mark Vardson in Washington. December 26, 2003, Joseph Pilger of Kentucky. January 28, 2004, Richard Tunley of New York. June 13, 2004, James Patrick Seldomridge, Indiana. April 1st, 2007, William Stoney McCarriger, Arizona, whose killer was a self-professed serial killer who vowed to rid the world of, quote, less than desirables. November 30th, 2007, Daniel G. Sorensen of Michigan was the victim of a, quote, thrill killing. December 1st, 2007, Davian Crow of Texas. May 24th, 2008, Hanno Bailey of Iowa. June 14, 2008, William Joseph Howe of Florida. August 15, 2008, Raymond Pike of New York. September 2nd, 2008, Cristobal Cooler of New Mexico. August 23rd, 2009, Dennis McCarthy of Michigan. The police believed the victim was targeted because of his registered status. He killed the person in front of his wife and walked out the door and left her alone. August 25th, 2009, John Stauffer of Ohio. One of the killers was pregnant and believed she would lose the baby due to the registrant's his status. March 24, 2010, William Rex White of West Virginia stated the victim, quote, had it coming, and taunted the victim while killing him. September 14, 2012, Constance Connie Cole, a non-registrant, was the friend of a registered person who was in the wrong place at the wrong time and was the target of murder. John Poff of Arizona died on September 14, 2012. 2 weeks later, Derek Vassiana of Florida was murdered on the 26th of September of 2012. December 20th, 2012, James Brian Brinson of Texas. The plan was to rob the victim as a retaliation for an alleged sex offense. January 24, 2013, Arthur Schroeder of Washington tried claiming the victim, an 82-year-old man in a wheelchair, of assaulting him to justify robbing him and murdering him. June 22nd, 2013, David Bailey of Kentucky. Larry Page is stuck together. August 12, 2013, Donald Wayne Crisp of California. His murder remains unsolved to this day. September 19, 2013, Donald Robinson of Maryland. May 8, 2014, Ryan Thomas Wells, Texas. Murder remains unsolved. May 26, 2014, Tara Vance and Charles Daniel Marker Jr. of Charles, Ohio. Oh, okay, his last name was Charles, sorry. Daniel Marker Charles of Ohio. Vigilantes burned down their home. August 18, 2014, Joseph Moisa and Michael Henderson of Washington, falsely accused of, quote, grooming. August 26, 2014, Roland Lee Taki of Arizona. September 17, 2014, Norman Bill Willis of Florida. December 24, 2014, Stephen Manuel of Kansas. January 5th, 2015, James Naylor of Alabama. Killer was not charged even though he had posted flyers in the neighborhood and harassed the victim. January 27, 2015, Johnny Singleton, South Carolina. August 29, 2016, Wesley D. Ney of Utah. January 9, 2018, Roderick White, a non-registrant, killed after Facebook page identified White as a registered person, though no match on the registry could be found. On May 13, 2019, Stephen Stryker was murdered by his Florida court-appointed guardian who had capped the disabled Stryker's feeding tube despite warnings not to do so, and she signed a do not resuscitate order against Stephen's wishes. August 10, 2019, Jace Decker, a non-registrant, was beaten into a coma because the killers falsely believed he was a registered person. March 24, 2020, Elijah Rader of Kentucky. July 2nd, 2020, Mark Pitts of Missouri. October 8, 2020, Stephen L. Weber of Nebraska. The killers bragged to the cop they were hunting the victim down before committing the murder. And one of the killers died in a car crash with the victim. They drove head-on into them. January 15, 2021, Robert Bramman Sr. and Samuel Compton Christopher of Michigan. The killer stated on Facebook he had planned to kill registered persons. May 12, 2021, Ralph Mendez, Rory Brooks of California. The killer was a QAnon follower, and his wife says she used the registry website and talked about registered persons before the murder. May 22nd, 2021, Daniel Sanders of Texas. These were all people who were killed directly from the registry because of vigilantes. Being accused or convicted of a sexual offense makes many a favorite target of jailhouse bullies. The following names are registrants who were murdered in jail or prison while being detained specifically on accusations of failure to register. Peter Brian Deacon, Mojave County Jail, Utah. Killer was a white supremacist. February 14, 2008, Shannon Lee Grayling, CSP, Sacramento, California. Robert Running Bear, USP Marion, Illinois, died December 2nd, 2009. On November 25th, 2011, Mark Henderson Hansen of Sterling Correctional Facility in Colorado was killed. February 21st, 2012, Stuart Brooks, East Mississippi Correctional Facility. September 5th, 2012, Eddie Nelson Jr., Muskogee County Jail, Georgia. He was placed in a cell with a man looking to murder white men. 12/8/2012, Matthew Shile, Cummins Unit, Arizona. June 4th, 2013, Sean Demetrius McLean, Wake County Detention Center, North Carolina. Edward Larson, December 14, 2014, Sacramento County Jail, California. August 28, 2016, Charles Jones, Brevard County Jail. Charges were later dropped for medical negligence. July 29, 2017, Harley Holt, Algoa Correctional Facility, Missouri. June 18, 2018, James Mills, Pinellas County Jail, Florida. July 1st, 2019, David Kever, Santa Rosa Correctional Institute in Florida. October 1st, 2019, Mark Lawhead, Oklahoma SP, murderer bragged he, quote, smoked a savage. March 11, 2021, John Sullivan, San Quentin, and Scott Gunter, March 15, 2022, Wasco SP in California. But not all murders are at the hands of vigilantes. Persons forced to register have died due to denial of services and neglect. Finding low-income housing, assisted care facilities, and nursing homes is a growing problem since many programs refuse to take in a person forced to register. And many of the programs that accept a person forced to register tend to provide inadequate services. Here are just a handful of names of people who have died due to these denial of services. Joseph Heverin of Dover, Delaware died on February 25, 2008. He had Huntington's disease, an inherited disorder that caused nerve cells and neurons in parts of the brain to gradually break down and die. Heverin was denied entry into an adequate assisted care facility due to his status, and he died when someone at a mental health facility he was temporarily staying in, not properly trained in Huntington's disease, fed him a grilled cheese sandwich and he died to death. Thomas Pauley of Grand Rapids, Michigan died January 26, 2009. He was denied shelter due to the state's residency restriction laws justified by Smith v. Doe and froze to death in sub-zero temperatures. Studies have shown that chronic homelessness shortens lifespans by an average of 15 years. Thomas Craig of San Francisco, California died November 18, 2010, and Nicholas Chavosky of San Francisco, California died February 18, 2010, who already received health issues but could not receive proper medical care due to their registry status. In January 2020, Charles Hobbs was detained on suspicion of failure to register in Miami, Florida. When the COVID pandemic began, a judge ordered him released from jail and placed in home confinement, given his multiple underlying conditions of congenital heart failure, kidney failure, and hypertension. But the jail refused to release him, and he ultimately died of COVID on May 2nd, 2020. As with the murders, there's simply no way to know how many people have committed suicide because of the registry. Few of these suicides have made headlines, so suicide rates among persons forced to register remain underreported. Here are the names of a few registered persons who I know took their lives. Justin Fawcett was 17 when he had consensual relationships with a 14-year-old classmate. On March 19, 2004, he took his own life. 7 years later, the Missouri Sex Offense Registration Unit had sent the parents a letter notifying them that Justin could be excluded from the public registry and was eligible to have his name removed. Clovis Ivan Claxton of Ocala, California died on April 24, 2005. He killed himself after flyers in the neighborhood declared him a, quote, child rapist. The body of David Allen Bolivar was found on Thanksgiving Day 2016 on a beach in Broward County, Florida. He was forced into homelessness by the laws championed by Florida lobbyist Ron Book. The threat of registration alone may be enough to compel someone to commit suicide. On August 28, 2009, William Evans of St. Augustine, fearing a false conviction for rape, fled the courthouse, and while he was at home taking his life, the jury had read the verdict in his absence, declaring him not guilty. And on October 2nd, 2013, a 15-year-old from Huntsville, Alabama, named Christian Adamick, who already suffered from depression, committed suicide days after being threatened with inclusion on the sex offense registry for streaking at a high school football game. Smith versus Doe based most of their ruling off of Kansas v. Hendricks, which determined civil commitment for persons convicted of sexual offenses is not punitive. As a result, many people have been sent to civil commitment centers, or as we prefer to call them, indefinite detention centers, to sit and rot, and hundreds have died in these concentration camps. Even today, we do not have an accurate picture of the number of deaths because some of these concentration camps censor attempts to pass along relevant information and provide inaccurate information about the deaths in their programs. As of June 28, 2020, 30 men have known to have died in the Texas Civil Commitment Program. But the Texas Civil Commitment Program have told reporters only 3 people have died. Perhaps they forgot to add the 0. As of August 18, 2022, 95 registrants have died in the Moose Lake and St. Peter facilities in Minnesota, where only a handful have been released since the program created in 1993. And one activist sent me a list of 104 registrants who have died in Florida Civil Commitment Program. And while I lack complete numbers for the deaths in New York, a news investigation report found 2 deaths in the New York Civil Commitment Centers. One had died, had a history of swallowing things, and required constant supervision. Workers told the man that he likely swallowed a lot of newspaper while in the bathroom and choked to death. And the police ruled the death a, quote, accident. New York is one of a handful of states that detain people beyond their release dates if they lack definitive housing. Utah, Alabama, Illinois, and Kentucky have all done the same at some point. In Kentucky, 5 registered persons have been, quote, violated at the gate, that is, found to have violated the conditions of their release before they even released the prison gates because they had nowhere to live. One of them died in custody 3 months later. Many other prisoners died during the COVID outbreaks, and during the initial outbreak, around 300 people in Illinois were held beyond their release dates. And even after law enforcement agencies shut down most services during the COVID outbreak, many of us were forced to continue to register, exposing us to a highly contagious and potentially fatal disease. Over the years, a number of people have lost their lives in a different way. And some of them have sacrificed their time and their effort and ultimately their lives for the sake of advocating against these draconian laws. As I start to close out my speech, I want to honor those who have been a part of this movement for the last 15 years, who have died while helping us to fight these laws in various ways. And these may not, and this is not a complete list of names. These are only the people that I'm aware of who have passed away. Many others who have worked behind the scenes, who have died. Unfortunately, we don't know their names, but we honor their sacrifice as well. We honor the following people. We honor Mary Duval from Oklahoma, who died on June 19, 2011. Jackie Sparling of Ohio, who died in September 2021. Ron Daniels of California died in 2013. The Reverend David C. David Hess of Rochester, New York, he died on March 7, 2014. In a final email to a state representative, Reverend Hess said, "At least my death will get me off the registry. I had hoped for a different exit." E. Advocate, who died in January 2018. And another man I just knew only as David, who worked behind the scenes for many years, had also died that year in 2018. A person I only knew as Top Wop, who was a staffer at SOSN, died in the spring of 2019. And Gregory Lobby of Wymore, Nebraska, who helped a lot of us over in Nebraska over the years, died just a few weeks ago on January 25th, 2013. And I'm wearing one of these pins that he gave me in his honor this morning. Finally, we remember the millions who are either currently on the registry, soon to be placed on the registry, those recently removed from the registry, and all who stand with us. In many ways, the public registry has already murdered all of us. We are in many ways the walking dead. We are alive, and yet we are not allowed to live our lives to the fullest, restricted in all aspects of our lives, where we can live, work, travel, leisure, and sometimes even with whom we can establish any kind of bond. We suffer social ostracism. We suffer denial of housing, employment, and social services. We suffer denial of assistance for common protections afforded to others during global pandemics and natural disasters. We suffer harassment, vandalism, assaults, and even murder. People encourage us to commit suicide or encourage us to mutilate our bodies. Some states even mark our ID cards and our driver's license, while the U.S. State Department down the street marks our passports. And even when we want to leave the United States for good, this so-called Angel Watch program, a service of International Megan's Law, notifies the nations where we plan to visit or to emigrate, and both neighbors and expats are starting to experience harassment by law enforcement officials and neighbors. The U.S. has stated that in the passage of International Megan's Law that they instead that they had intended to spread the American concept of Megan's Law all across the globe. And all of this pain and suffering is tied directly to Smith versus Doe. This is the mess that you helped create, Chief Justice Price Club Roberts. Do the right thing and clean up this mess you created.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Janice Bellucci, and just in case you don't know, I am a civil rights attorney in the state of California. I'm so happy to be here with you today, and I'm so happy to see you here today. I often say and urge people to show up, stand up, and speak up, and I'm going to give you the opportunity before I stop speaking to speak up. So, I begin. The U.S. Supreme Court made a terrible mistake 20 years ago. It is a mistake that has significantly harmed more than 1 million Americans who are required to register and their families. Harm that includes both vigilante violence and suicide. The court's terrible mistake was made in March 2003 in a decision called Smith versus Doe. In that terrible decision, the court wrongly decided that registration is a regulatory requirement and not punishment. As a result, new registration laws have been enacted and applied retroactively, such as Megan's Law, a law that requires state governments to post personal information about registrants on a public internet, including your home address and your photograph, all right? And because they're applying it retroactively, it's being applied to people such as my friend Frank Lindsay, who was convicted before the internet was even created. Think about it. Smith versus Doe, the court's terrible decision, is based upon a myth. The myth is that people who are required to register reoffend at a rate of up to 80%. The source of this myth was not empirical data. It did not come from a government or academic study. Instead, the myth came from a marketing statement published in Psychology Today magazine. That is outrageous. And to make matters worse, that marketing statement has now been retracted by the individual who uttered it. At least he has common sense. The court's decision is also based upon a dubious statement during oral argument in Smith versus Doe. The person who made that statement, then private attorney John Roberts, said that the requirement to register was no more burdensome than applying for membership in Price Club, a discount store. This is the same John Roberts who is now Chief Justice of the U.S. Supreme Court. I know it's a common name, but it is the same person. Perhaps at the time he made those statements, John Roberts had never applied for membership in Price Club. Perhaps at the time he had no idea that people who are required to register and their families were already experiencing significant harm, such as lack of housing, under or unemployment, and the worst social stigma anyone could imagine. That is why we're here today, to educate Chief Justice John Roberts. Oh, and the remaining 8 members of the court. We are also here to demand that the court admit that Smith versus Doe is a terrible mistake, a mistake that must be fixed now.
Yes. Yes.
We remind Chief Justice Roberts and the 8 justices he leads that the court has made terrible mistakes in the past. This is not their first one. For example, the court approved separate but equal education in the case Plessy versus Ferguson. Never heard of that one. And the court approved internment camps for U.S. citizens of Japanese descent. The court, thankfully, has corrected those two terrible mistakes. It is time now for the court to correct the terrible mistake it made 20 years ago in Smith versus Doe. Yeah. And until the court corrects Smith versus Doe, more than 1 million American families will continue to be significantly harmed. Some of them will experience homelessness. Many of them will be unemployed, and others will be hunted down by vigilantes and killed. Chief Justice Roberts, it's time to admit you made a mistake. Registration is not the same or even similar to applying for membership in Price Club. Instead, registration is punishment. Yeah. Why don't you say that after me again? Registration is punishment. Chief Justice Roberts, it's time for you to lead the court to overturn Smith versus Doe, and it's time for the court and Chief Justice Roberts to hear you say the following: Smith versus Doe must go.
Smith versus Doe must go.
One more time.
Smith versus Doe must go.
Thank you so much today.
I am so thrilled to see so many of us out here today to bring awareness to this. When we think about this casket, you know, when you think about a funeral, there's that time of mourning. But there's also a time of celebration because you celebrate the person's life. But what we're going to do now is we're going to celebrate the death of when the registry is in here. So don't just look at this casket as the casket of where individuals have lied, but let's look at this as also the casket where the registry is going to die and where there's freedom. One thing I was just looking at is, what does it say up there on that building?
Equal justice for law.
Is there equal justice under law when we're talking about this population? No. When we're talking about people forced to register? Is that equal? No. So we are here to fight for equal justice, you know. We have all come together for this weekend, you know, and it's been a great time. And what better way to end by having this procession, you know. Thank you, Derek, for your words and just bringing awareness to how many people have lost their lives in multiple ways because of this. Janice, thank you for your words, you know. And what we do now is we keep fighting, we keep pressing on. Because just because we came here, we did this, is the fight stopping?
No!
The registry ain't in there yet, right? So we got to keep fighting. We got to keep coming together, and we have to do it together. You know, we have to do it in unity. Look at all the groups that have come together to make this happen this weekend. Look at where we are right now. You know, there were some people that thought we weren't going to have this many people here. We have close to 50. We have close to 50 people here right now. Okay, 68 people. That is amazing. And it's cold out here, and we're bearing the cold, you know? But what we do is, it's about staying together, staying united, because united we stand, divided we fall. So it's about going on, pressing forward, and teamwork
makes the dream work.
But I want to say something else. I want you to say, when I say teamwork, I want you to say, gets rid of the registry. So, teamwork,
Get rid of the registry.
Teamwork,
Get rid of the registry.
Teamwork,
Get rid of the registry.
real quickly, I didn't plan on speaking, but I'm going to. This will be how I roll. I just want to thank everybody that came out here as a united front. It's not easy to get out here. I was one of those people that I stayed behind the scenes. I wouldn't be public. Oh God, they can't see me. But you know what? Every day they see me because I'm public. I'm on the registry. It's not going to change until all of us come together with unity to make change.
That's right.
My biggest saying
That's
is,
right.
with unity comes change.
That's right.
With unity
Comes change.
So, everybody out here, we can be powerful in numbers. We can make a difference in numbers. All of us have friends that might know us, but might not know who we are. But you would be surprised at how many people can understand your story because they've met you. You're a person, you're a human being. Because I'm not a registrant, I'm a father. I'm not a registrant, I'm a husband.
That's right.
I'm not a registrant, I'm a business owner.
That's right.
I mean, the registry does not have to define who we are.
Exactly.
Because it never defined me.
That's
When I
right.
got out, I didn't let it kick me down. I kept on moving. And if we all can start identifying as who we are, not who they want us to be, change can happen. Because with unity, God, that was horrible. Do it again. With unity, and the whole reason why we're here, teamwork,
Makes the dream work.
Is there anybody else that would like to say anything?
I know it's cold out here and all, but I know along the way there were people that said they wanted to say something. So if there's anybody else that feels like they have a message they want to add to what we've said so far today, feel free to come up here and give a short little speech.
Thank you, Derek. I'll be brief. My name is Norman Michaelation. I live in Virginia. I was a former school teacher caught in one of these so-called stings when I was actually attempting to help somebody who I had inadvertently stumbled on. Facts don't matter, as you know. They don't matter back here. They don't matter over there. And they don't matter out to here. But I just like to say one thing. We all come from different groups and different backgrounds. There's one thing we can learn from the Republicans through Ronald Reagan, and that is do not attack your fellow Republican. And I think that we look bad, we act bad, we sound bad, and we give voice and ammunition to the various enemies we have when we don't come together and support one another. So the cardinal rule going forward should be attack none of us, because all of us benefit from getting rid of the registry. And as the gentleman said right before, the registry doesn't define us. It is a set of conditions imposed upon us. And always remember that. Because when you go home to your places and you're by yourself and people attack you and they call you by names, remember the words of Jesus. Remember the words of many others who have come before us who fought bigger battles. And just keep strong. Thank you very much.
Very fast.
I just think we should thank Vicky and Chuck and everybody else who worked so hard. Chuck didn't sleep the first night he got here. They've been working just constantly to make this for us. And I thank you.
Hey, my name is Tammy Lawson, and I just want y'all to know I've been a registrant for 20 years. I've been very successful. I'm a successful businesswoman. I want to give much thanks to Vicki Henry and Moore and to Janice Bellucci and Axel. I want to thank each and every one of y'all for coming out here today. It just brings joy to my heart, and I want you all to know that you can be successful. You just got to do exactly what they said. Teamwork makes the dream work. Thank you all for showing up today.
Hello, my name is AC Chow. I'm a graduate of Chapman University with a BA in music. I hope to one day... Testing, 1, 2, 3. My name is AC Chow. I am a graduate of Chapman University with a BA in music. So you all might be wondering, where in hell is your coat? So let us not forget the few I read a news article back printed by Narsol about 3 or 4 years ago about a registrant who was denied entry amid a blazing, freezing storm, and the Salvation Army would not take him in. And what happened to him? He froze to death. I think a name or two was read in a similar situation where the registrant froze to death because he wasn't able to get into a shelter. So I know that today I will survive the cold, and let me stand in representation of all of us who do fight on and survive. Dream work?
Makes the dream work.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
I'm Jim Prager. I'm Jim Prager. I am from Toledo, Ohio. I have learned through a lot of experience that we can survive the registry and rebuild lives. I've been out of prison almost 23 years. In 2011, with a lot of support from others, I applied for a social work license in Ohio, and I actually got it. So, and the point is that when we put ourselves out there and take the risk of sharing our story, we can make a difference. So I've learned we can't be afraid, we can't hide our faces. I did that for a while. I'm here and I speak loud. Thank you.
Come on now, come on. You got in front of the mic. That's what comes with it.
I just want to say thanks for support. This was a last minute decision. I bought all my plane tickets on Friday to even come do this. I was super skeptical, but I appreciate you guys out here trying to make change and help some of us out, because for a while it's just something I dealt with, but after finding my oldest daughter on the ground seizing out because she was overdosing on pills because of something her dad did when he was 19 years old, it was one of the worst moments of my life to watch my little baby to be picked on for something she had nothing to do with, and then to have my oldest son constantly harassed because my name is tied to his license plate on his car. And it seems hopeless at times, but I just want to say thank you for you guys' help in this battle. Just know it affects a lot more people than just the one person that's on the internet. It's all your families. That's it.
December 5th, 2019. December 5th, 2019. About 6 days before my 27th birthday, my brother took his own life after facing a lifetime registration requirement. He wasn't evil. He wasn't a bad person. He made a mistake. He made a mistake with a high school girl who thought it would be funny to go have sex with someone like her older sister. The law is wrong. What happened to him was wrong. And I find it very poetic that we're here in front of the Supreme Court and we have truckloads of high schoolers all around us. This isn't just about the ones who are gone, and it's not about the ones who are on the registry today. It's about them. It's about the children that this is supposedly intended to protect. And yet, when they make a mistake, when something happens to the teenagers, they get put on the list for life. a Michigan district attorney wanted to prosecute a 6-year-old, and put her on the registry for life. She said, and I quote, "You can't start young enough. You can start young enough." The future that's going into this building is worth fighting for. And it might not be a pretty cause, but it's a worthy one. I also have to issue an apology to all of you. I didn't know about any of this until the situation with my brother. And I really thought that I was different than all of you. I really thought that I was in another class, another caste. But I realized after having spent so much time with you and listening to all of you, the distance between you and me is nothing. And I thank you all, and I love you all, and let's get it done.
Does anybody else need to say anything while we've got a few minutes left? Otherwise, I could certainly talk your ears off.
Go for it.
Hey everybody, great to see such a great turnout. Thanks for coming out. My name is Randall Hayes. I live in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. I work with Parsol. I'm the vice chair of the Pennsylvania NARSOL affiliate. Thanks again for speaking up. Just wanted to drive home some points that brought us here today. That in this country, there's the understanding that when you do a crime, you do the time. And when you do the time and you come out, your slate is wiped clean and you get a fresh start. But that's not the case for everybody, because the 700,000 people on sex offense registries in this country, they do not get a clean slate. They don't get a fresh start. They continue their punishment after their punishment is over. And so sex offense registries presume that people will never change, that the year spent in prison or a decade on probation means nothing, and that rehabilitation is impossible. That's the assumption when you put somebody on a sex offense registry and presuppose that they are a danger, sometimes for the rest of their life. We have people in their 80s on sex offense registries. We have people in their 90s on sex offense registries. We have teenagers who will be on a sex offense registry when they are 80. And so that's why we came here today again, to bring attention to Smith versus Doe and how this decision that sex offense registries are not punitive, that they're just as simple as applying for a driver's license. This decision is wrong and it needs to be addressed. That's why we're all here today. My appreciation and thanks go out to all the advocates who contact your state legislatures, who keep having this conversation. I'm very glad I came to this conference this weekend, and something I'm really going to take home from this is to just keep talking. That's one of the speakers told us to do, just keep talking to everybody about this. As the last speaker just said, they had no idea about this situation until it hit home and it became very personal for them. So let's keep talking. Keep talking.
I think the most inspirational thing out here is just knowing that you people came out here at all. I know it's cold, and we're going to have to wrap this thing up. So there's going to be one unusual, in closing this thing, there's one little group of people I want to thank, and it's going to sound funny coming from me because it's going to sound a little ironic. There was a little vigilante group that was supposed to be out here this morning. They're not here. Well, where'd they go? Hey, anybody from Voidsec? Hello, Voidsec, are you here? Come on, pull up. Pull up. That's the thing. This is, in case you guys don't know, there was a little vigilante group online that started bashing us a few months ago, and supposedly if I came here today, I was going to get beat up, and if we showed up, some of us were not going home. Well, I guess we're not going to be using this casket for any one of us this morning, but their little slogan was "Pull up." Well, I see about 70 people out here who pulled up this morning, but I didn't see any of them. And I know it took a lot to come out here. This is not the easiest place to get to. It's a little expensive. It's a little hard to get through the traffic. And we're surrounded by many people that supposedly inspired the laws that we're coming out here to protest. And maybe one day we might meet some of these people when they inevitably land on the registry themselves. So those, I hope that they went by and just kind of heard us in passing. I hope they take what we said to heart. Maybe they didn't take us seriously, but if they need us, we're going to be here.
Yeah.
I think we should take a group picture. Anybody think so?
Folks, I just can't let this opportunity go without saying one more time, we need to deliver the message to this court. Chief Justice Roberts, it's time to admit you made a mistake. It's time for you to correct that mistake. So let's do it one more time. Smith versus Doe must go. Smith versus Doe must go. Thank you.
Well, with that, I think we should end the presentation. If anybody wants to come up for a good group picture, I guess we should do that before we go. We may not have this opportunity again, so.
Thank you, Derek.
Thank you.
Yes, thank all of you who came out here, and thank everybody who helped make this thing come together. So.
Stand on the second.